It is 1:30 in the morning, September 22nd, 1992. A quiet man walks across the floor of the Stardust Casino in Las Vegas, carrying a heavy bag. The carpet is loud with patterns under his feet. The slot machines glow and chime in the dark. 100 cameras are watching that room. Not one of them is watching him. In 30 minutes, the count won't reconcile. More than $500,000 will be gone, and so will he. Forever. His name is Bill Brennan. No gun, no tunnel, no crew kicking down a door. The most secure thing in that building was never the vault. It was the casino's certainty that it knew exactly who to watch. Brennan had spent 4 years making sure that person was never him. He didn't beat the cameras. He stood in the one place they were built never to look. For more than 30 years, the FBI and a national manhunt have chased the same man. They have his name, his photo, the exact amount he took. Everything except him. How do you rob a casino watched by 100 cameras, then vanish so completely that 30 years of searching turns up nothing? And the harder question, did he get away with it, or did getting away with it get him killed? The reason he could do it comes down to one strange fact. Almost no one could remember he was even there. Start with the strangest part. Almost no one could describe it. People who saw Brennan every day struggled to say what he looked like. He was in his early 30s. He was quiet. He was polite. After that, the descriptions go soft and run out. That blankness is not a gap in the story. It is the story. He was 34 years old. William Brennan on the payroll. Bill to the few who knew him. He worked as a cashier in the sports book at the Stardust, and he had done that job for about 4 years. He lived alone in a residential motel across the strip, close enough to walk to work. He had no friends anyone could name. He had a cat. Richard Saber managed the Stardust sportsbook, and he worked alongside Brennan for years. Asked later to describe him, Saber kept it short. Brennan was a complete loner, he said. He lived alone with that cat. The job itself is the key to everything. Every night, Brennan counted the money the sportsbook took in. Then he carried it, cash and chips in a bag, across the floor to the vault, every single night. The same man, the same bag, the same short walk. 2 facts sat side by side in that building, and no one ever lined them up. Brennan handled enormous sums of money, and he was the most forgettable person on the property. The reframe is this. We picture the perfect criminal as brilliant, charming, the man everyone remembers. Brennan was the exact opposite. His weapon was being nothing, being furniture, being the face your eyes slide past on its way to something brighter. And every dull year at that cage was doing quiet work for him. Every ordinary shift taught the building one lesson. Bill Brennan was safe, predictable, beneath suspicion. He was laying camouflage one boring night at a time, and it looked exactly like a man just doing his job, because that is all anyone ever saw. Then something shifted. Coworkers noticed he had pulled further inward, and they noticed the books he had started to read. Books about how a person could disappear, change a name, become someone else entirely. The most boring man at the Stardust was quietly studying how to vanish, and not one person thought to ask him why. By 1992, the Stardust was not the casino of the old mob movies. That era was finished. Boyd Gaming, a publicly traded company, had bought the property back in 1985 and shut down the years of skimming and hidden cash. What replaced the mob was, in some ways, harder to beat. Rules, audits, procedure. After the scandals, regulators had forced round-the-clock surveillance and strict cash handling controls onto the casino floor. This was a corporate fortress now, and it was watching everything. Cameras covered the gaming floor in overlapping arcs. The reason casinos are said to sit under an eye in the sky, upstairs in a locked room. Staff watched the feeds in real time. And down on the floor, the count never stopped. Every chip, every bill, every hand of money was supposed to reconcile by the end of the night. A single dollar out of place became a problem someone had to explain. Richard Saber put it simply. In that building, you trusted the cameras over any person's word. That was the lesson of the skimming years, burned into the place's bones. Watch the money, count it twice. On paper, the building was sealed. So how does anyone walk $500,000 out of it? Here's the part that should bother you. Almost every piece of that security was aimed at the wrong target. The cameras watched the floor, the gamblers, the dealers, the strangers drifting through. The count caught discrepancies, but only after the money was already gone. When someone tallied the night and found the gap, the guards watched for a threat. A robber, an outsider, a face that did not belong. 100 cameras could follow one stranger from the front doors to the far wall. Not one of them was pointed at the question of whether the man counting the money should be trusted with it. Because Brennan was none of the things the system hunted for. He was the man whose entire job was to handle the cash. He stood inside the one space the whole apparatus was built to trust. A casino can watch every stranger who comes through the doors. What it cannot easily watch is the person it has already decided is safe. That is the blind spot no casino can fully close. Add 1,000 more cameras, tighten every audit, and the gap stays open. Because the gap was never in the equipment. It was in human attention. And Brennan had spent 4 quiet years making sure he looked like the safest man in the building. He didn't need to break the system. He just needed to stand where it wasn't looking. The night was chosen. It was not random. September 21st, 1992 was a Monday. And Monday meant football. The New York Giants played the Chicago Bears on national television, and across Las Vegas the bets came pouring in. The Stardust Sportsbook ran hot all evening. By the small hours of Tuesday the 22nd, the cash and chips stacked up from a full day and night of betting were heavier than on almost any other night of the year. Brennan knew that. Counting that money was his job, and he had worked enough nights to know which ones were fat. He ran the count in the quiet early hours, when the sportsbook was nearly empty and the supervision was thin. For a stretch that night, he was alone with all of it. That window was the entire plan. No tunnel, no weapon, just a few unwatched minutes and a bag he was allowed to carry. What he carried out came to more than $500,000. Around $225,000 of it was cash. The rest, close to $280,000, was in casino chips. The loaded bag weighed something like 11 pounds. He had carried that same bag on that same short route to the vault every night for 4 years. Tonight, he simply did not stop. One step past the vault door, and there was no taking it back. And here was the quiet flaw buried inside his own plan. Cash spends anywhere. Chips do not. Nearly $280,000 of what he was carrying could only become money at a casino cage. Slowly, a few at a time, in front of someone, he was walking out heavy with a fortune, and more than half of it was a problem he had not yet solved. He moved at a completely ordinary pace. Behind him, the cage where he should have been, the drawer already empty. In front of him, the floor and the people on it. A few feet from the edge of the floor, someone said his name. A familiar face, a man he'd nodded to 100 times, slowing as they crossed paths. "Heading up, Bill?" The bag hung in Brennan's fist. 11 pounds of cash and chips, inches from a hand that could have reached out and felt the weight of it. "Yeah," Brennan said. "Same as always." And that was true. It was the same as always. The same man, the same bag, the same short walk to the vault he made every single night. So the other man just nodded and kept going, and thought nothing of it at all. He had no idea he had just spoken to the answer to a 30-year mystery. That is the cruelty of it, and the genius of it. We already know this man is about to disappear forever. The people standing a few feet away had no idea they were watching it happen. They were looking straight at a ghost being made. And to them, he was just Bill, heading to the vault like always. He reached the edge of the floor. He kept walking. No camera caught the moment he left. No guard remembered seeing him go. Later, investigators could not even agree on where he had exited the building or which direction he had walked into the night. A man had carried a fortune out of one of the most watched buildings in the city, and the building held no record of it at all. Inside, a cashier's drawer sat empty. The night's count would not reconcile, but that discovery was still minutes away, and Brennan was already gone, a heavy bag in his fist and the lights of the strip swallowing him whole. The clock read about 1:30 in the morning. His deposit wasn't due until 2. He had just handed himself a 30-minute head start before a single person would even think to wonder where he was. Two o'clock in the morning came. The deposit did not. Somewhere in the count room, a number was wrong. A cashier's window stood empty when it shouldn't be. Someone went looking for Brennan and didn't find him. Someone checked the drawer and found it cleaned out. And slowly, in the middle of the night, the realization moved through the building like a cold draft. The money was gone, and so was the most trusted man in the room. But here is the detail that handed Brennan his real escape. It reportedly took police several hours just to establish that he was the one who had taken it. Every one of those hours, he was moving, driving, packing, putting distance between himself and the strip, while the building was still trying to understand what had even happened. When officers finally reached his motel room across the street, it was empty. His things were gone, and so was the cat. The one creature in the world Bill Brennan seemed to care about had left with him. He wasn't coming back for anything. Within a day, a warrant went out and the manhunt went national. Brennan landed on the FBI's most wanted list. His case ran on America's Most Wanted, broadcast into living rooms across the country. Tips came in, people wanted the reward. None of them led anywhere. The people who knew Brennan couldn't make the math work. Richard Saber had managed the sports book. He had worked beside Brennan, watched him count the money night after night. When the news broke that quiet, polite, forgettable Bill had pulled off the biggest inside theft anyone could remember, Saber could barely believe it. This was not the man you pictured masterminding a $500,000 heist. He was a loner who lived with his cat. He bothered no one. He was the last person in the building you would ever have looked at twice, which of course was the entire point. Then the story took one more strange turn. Brennan had been spending time with a big bettor at the sports book, a man with a reputation Saber did not trust. A shady character. Saber called him. A few months after Brennan vanished, that gambler vanished too, gone from the face of the earth. In Saber's words, the two men connected to the same casino, both swallowed by the same silence. The police chased it as far as it would go. The trail ran a short distance, and then it simply stopped. No money surfaced, no chips turned up, no body was ever found. So before we get to where he went, I want you to answer something for yourself. Right now in the comments, do you think a man can truly erase himself? Vanish so completely that 30 years of searching turns up nothing? Lock in your answer before you hear the rest, because the question has already stopped being how Bill Brennan did it. It's become something much harder. What in the world happened to him? More than 30 years later, there is no body, no arrest, and no confirmed sighting. There are only two endings, and you have to pick one. The first is the clean one. Brennan got away. He had studied how to disappear, and then he did it. A new name, a new face, a quiet life somewhere far from the desert. Someone said he ran for Canada. Some said Mexico. In this version, the most forgettable man in Las Vegas pulled off the most memorable thing imaginable. And he's still out there, an old man now, watching a story like this one, saying nothing. But there's a hole in that ending, and it's the bag. Remember what was inside it? More than half his fortune was in chips he could not easily spend without standing at a casino cage and being seen. A man who disappears perfectly cannot stroll up to a window and start cashing them. So either he walked away from nearly $280,000 he couldn't touch, or he took a risk that could have led the people hunting him straight to a new face. Which is exactly where the second ending begins, the darker one. Remember the shady gambler? The one with the bad reputation who vanished a few months after Brennan? If that man had ties to dangerous people, then Brennan may never have made it out at all. In this version, he didn't escape into a new life. He was silenced, and the silence is total, because there was never anyone left to talk. The desert keeps that kind of secret well. So that's the choice. Did vanishing forever make Bill Brennan a genius, or did it just make him gone? And that is what makes this case unforgettable. The perfect crime is not one where you escape with the money. It's the one so quiet that, decades later, the best investigators still cannot tell you whether it was brilliance or a man who got lucky and lived. Brennan never told his side, which means the system he beat is still technically undefeated. It just can't find him to admit it. The Stardust itself is gone now. Boyd closed it in 2006, the same year prosecutors quietly dropped the case. The towers came down in 2007. Where that casino stood, something different rises now. Different cameras, different people. The vault is gone, the cage is gone, the empty drawer is gone. And somewhere, the same is true of the only man who ever knew which ending is real. In a warm place, under a new name, or in the ground, under the desert he beat. So tell me which one you believe. One word in the comments. Warm if you think he made it somewhere far away, or desert if you think it already knows the answer. Because if one trusted insider could do this, he wasn't the only one who ever tried. Next, the story of another invisible man who beat a system everyone swore could not be broken.